Welcome to the United States of Small Business, a podcast where the essence of American entrepreneurship is celebrated in every episode. With host John Quick at the helm, join us as we embark on a journey through the heart of the nation, uncovering the inspiring stories of small business owners from coast to coast. Experience the vibrant energy of bustling cities and the serene beauty of small towns, all while discovering how individuals are turning their entrepreneurial dreams into reality, even against the greatest odds. Each episode brings you face to face with the dreamers, creators, and doers who form the economic backbone of our country, all sharing their spirit of innovation and resilience. Whether you are in the early stages of sowing the seeds for your own business, scaling new heights in your current venture, or simply captivated by tales of grit and triumph, you are in the right place. Tune in on platforms like Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Pandora, and beyond. For deeper insights and to connect with the heart and soul of America's main streets, visit UnitedStatesOfSmallBusiness.com. Subscribe to United States of Small Business with host John Quick now and be inspired by the powerful stories of entrepreneurship, community, and the unwavering pursuit of the American dream. Begin your journey of inspiration with us today.
Welcome to another episode of the United States of Small Business, where we explore the power of transformational leadership and personal growth today. I'm your host, John Quick, and today we're joined by Aaron Trahan, a seasoned performance and leadership coach who excels in pushing professionals beyond their comfort zone. With over 15 years of executive experience, Aaron has honed a unique method to amplify your performance and unlock your full potential. Today, he'll share how he helps leaders act on their growth mindset and accelerate their journey from good to great. Get ready to learn how you can start performing at the high level that you know you were set out to do. So without further ado, Aaron, welcome to the United States of Small Business podcast.
Hey, John, thanks for having me. Looking forward to a great discussion.
Well, this will be fun. I'm excited to hear a little bit about your story and your thoughts on being an entrepreneur in today's day and age. But first, take me back to way back in the day. Tell me about how you got involved in being an entrepreneur.
Yeah, for me, and I suspect this is true for a lot of other people, I think the entrepreneurial spirit was kind of always there. I started my career in a kind of an environment that was polar opposite of kind of an entrepreneurial venture. So a very corporate, very stiff, very almost like an old IBM culture, right? The blue suits, the white shirts, the dark ties. It was very kind of a rigid structure. But I think the seeds that really started to get planted for me around the entrepreneurial spirit was we were a very, very bootstrap company. Even when we exceeded 1 billion in annual revenue, 1.5 billion in annual revenue, people that would come in, it almost still felt like we were operating like we were on the verge of bankruptcy tomorrow. It was such a bootstrap company. And so I think that's where, even while being into a very tight, rigid corporate environment, the seeds of kind of the entrepreneurial spirit started to evolve. And once the company got to a certain stage, I wanted to get back into that building mode. So I would say the past 5 to 7 years before launching my own firm was spent in early stage startups. So getting closer to ground zero of the building, developing of, taking an idea and putting a business around it. And my passion's always been coaching, and especially performance coaching, and helping others really make the leap from their version of good to their version of great. And the opportunity presented itself for me to go all in a couple of years ago. And to put a bow on this, I knew that if I didn't take the plunge, it would be the thing that I woke up 25 years from now regretting not going full steam ahead with my own entrepreneurial venture.
That's awesome. So tell folks out there, what is a performance coach? I think, there's going to be folks that listen to this podcast. Maybe they own a coffee shop or a couple hamburger locations, or they're starting their online business.
Mm-hmm.
What does a performance coach do? Are you helping people do push-ups? My guess is it's more of a mindset thing, but tell folks,
Right.
the in and out of what you're doing as a performance coach.
Yeah. So think about what a physical trainer is in terms of a trainer coach for the body. I kind of like to be their counterpart to the mind of a professional, right? And simply stated, it's my job to help leaders, entrepreneurs, founders, executives simply get better. And I think when all of the work that I've done, whether it be in the corporate space, the startup space, working directly with, with people one-on-one and organizations one-on-one, the common theme is that I think we all can agree that if we are able to get better at prioritizing our priorities, not focusing on 20 different things, but really understanding what are the 2, 3, 4 things that really matter. If we're able to then 10x our focus just in those areas and then have an accountability mechanism that allows us and helps drive continuous progress there, I think we could all agree that we would see better performance in whatever field area or domain we're in. And oftentimes what lacks for people being able to deliver the right level of prioritization, focus, and accountability is a lack of systems. So where I show up, no different than that physical trainer kind of providing a workout regimen and program, I kind of do that with helping leaders implement the proper systems that allow those 3 things to happen: prioritization, focus on those priorities, and then the accountability mechanisms that, keeps the main thing the main thing.
That's awesome. So what are some things that you've seen? You get to talk to and coach folks from, all walks of life, probably CEOs and entrepreneurs and everything in between. What are some common themes that you've seen with very successful folks?
Yeah, and it's, really one big thing that shows up over and over, and that's kind of the not so secret that a lot of people don't talk enough about, in my opinion, and that is success breeds complacency. It always has, it always will. You hear championship teams cite all the time, it's far more difficult to repeat as champions than it was to win the first title. You hear companies say the same thing: maintaining and sustaining #1 market share and industry dominance, far more difficult than reaching that level the first time. It's no different for leaders. As we continue to climb up the ladder of however you're defining success, the more successful we become, the more we actually have to work harder at keeping complacency away, right? Like not getting stuck and trapped in the comfort zone. And so I think that's one of the biggest problems that I continue to see is how do good leaders continue to get better, and not how do good leaders kind of rest on the resume and the track record of achievements that they've already generated, only to kind of lose their edge, lose their drive, lose that focus on continuous improvement, because complacency is way harder to kind of push away when you're successful versus when you're still young and hungry and driven, right? And so how do successful leaders, already successful, already good at what they do, continue to make progress, getting better and becoming great? That's an extraordinarily big challenge that I see so many successful leaders try to tackle in a lot of mostly ineffective ways.
So I'm sure you've met successful people that maybe people would look at and see as successful because they make a lot of money. Tell me about, you've probably met multimillionaires that are just miserable, right? And so tell me about how being positive with folks' outlook on life, does that play a role in success? Or is it just about, having a fancy title and making a lot of money?
That's such an insightful question. And yeah, I think you kind of hit the nail on the head of why you see so many externally defined successful people that have the status, the title, the money, and they're almost more miserable than they were before they had all that, right? And it really comes down to alignment. It's one thing to know what you're pursuing, kind of what you're chasing after, but it's another thing to understand why. And I think so many times we get on this hamster wheel that is kind of we're chasing after this vision of either becoming a successful entrepreneur, becoming a successful leader, corporate industry titan. And we don't have a strong why. We're basically operating just because that's the environment that we're seeing. This is kind of how it operates. And the one thing that I continue to come back to is when you're chasing after things you don't really want or don't really need, you'll never have enough. More is not a strategy. So I like to take all of my clients through a calibration of, just a simple audit. I have them really define, what does success look like for you? Not by external standards, not compared to what it looks like on Instagram or LinkedIn. When you look yourself in the mirror, how are you defining success for you? That person looking back at you. That's number one. Number two, do that same thing around happiness. What is it that makes you happy? What does having happiness in your life look like? What's a day that you can kind of imagine, the ideal day that kind of makes you happy? And then the third one, the most important question, is based on your definitions of those two things, which, by the way, 90% of people never have firm definitions up front. That usually kind of takes some work for us to even get those things defined. But then once we do, we ask the other big question, do these two things align with one another, or are they in conflict? And the reason that's so important, and kind of goes back to your question, is so many successful leaders give up all of one side to chase that artificial definition of success, assuming that once they get it, whether it's a title, status, money, the big capital raise, whatever it is, happiness will just be on the other side of that. And the reason they walk around miserable is because they realize that that's just not the case. And when winning doesn't feel like winning, it's a very challenging position to be in if you're not kind of doing that arithmetic of what success looks like, what does happiness mean for you, and can you operate with both of those and really making progress in both of those areas at the same time, and not giving up too much of one to chase the other, only to realize with hindsight that you were chasing after the wrong goal the whole time.
Well, folks are going to be listening into this and thinking, man, I got to talk to Aaron. So tell me about, specifically, what does your company do? Is it a process that is a couple weeks, couple months? Typically, what do you do with folks and for folks that call you up or email you and say, hey, I really need some help in this area of my life. Can you help coach me through this? What does that look like?
Yeah. I think, to bring it down to its simplest terms, I like to use the Google Maps analogy, right? If you pick up your phone, you open up Google Maps, you're trying to go somewhere. Maybe you're on a road trip, vacation, whatever it may be. The Google Maps tool is going to be dependent on you providing two critical data points: your current location and your destination. So that's always where we start with not only the organizations that I work with, but also the individuals one-on-one. And I kind of look at this in terms of the performance gap. I want everybody to kind of think about the gap between the level at which you're currently operating at, understanding our quote unquote current location, and then being able to define the level that they know deep down they're fully capable of. What needs to be true to connect those two dots? What must happen? What needs to be achieved? What's not happening that should be happening? And maybe what's happening that is not helping you that should stop happening. And so that's where we start. And then we implement the system, right? We then really fine tune the 80-20 principle. We're not going to be able to focus on 10 to 20 different things, but over the next 3 months, over the next 6 months, what are going to be those 2 to 3 things that mean the most to bridging that gap? And then from there, we identify those action-oriented priorities, the things that we're going to be able to effectively track, measure, and monitor on a week-over-week basis. And then we hold ourselves accountable. We score it, we measure it, and if we agree that these are the big objectives, these are the key priorities on how to achieve those objectives, we're tracking, measuring, and instilling that accountability week over week. So if we make continuous progress there, better performance is just the default. That's just the output from us focusing on those critical inputs. So at a 30,000 foot view, that's kind of what kind of the process looks and feels like. Not the most comfortable thing in the world. It's definitely going to get you out of your comfort zone, but it's very action oriented, because all of the potential we're looking to tap into, all of the growth we want, all the better results come on the other side of us taking those new actions, us doing the things that we know deep down we should have been doing all along, but life, work, whatever kind of gets in the way. We just invert that. We then make those handful of things the top priority. Everything else has to start getting moved around doing those two things. And then the tracking and the measuring is absolutely critical.
That's awesome. So what's the best way for folks to find you? Tell us about your website. Are you on social? Give us all those handles.
Yeah. So I'm on social. I would say the platform I'm most active on is going to be LinkedIn. So I highly encourage you, find me on LinkedIn at Aaron Trahan. Let's connect. Let's have a conversation. No risk to just understand kind of more about the approach, the methodology. I try to deliver as much value through my LinkedIn platform as possible. And then separately my website, where that can go into much deeper detail on exactly the what and the how. You can hear from, client testimonials of people that looked a lot like you, what results they were able to benefit from. And that website is performancemindsetcoaching.co. And then even from the website, if you wanted to get in touch with me, very easy to either schedule time or just shoot me an email directly from the website.
Awesome. Well, folks, we'll put all those links in the podcast description. Aaron, 15 minutes has gone by in a flash here. Do you have any last minute thoughts here before we head off?
No, other than, I would just say kind of it speaks to my approach, but the one message I would leave with your audience is just there will never be a substitute for taking action. You can read all the books, listen to all the podcasts, go to all the conferences and events. But if you don't put action behind those inspirations, behind those growth beliefs, you run the very real risk of being in a very similar position 1 year from now than you are today. And so thinking and believing can only take you so far, and it's not very far without strong action behind it.
Well, folks, listen in. If you just caught the tail end here, I want to encourage you to go back and listen to the whole thing. Aaron is a performance mindset coach. We're going to put all of his links in the podcast description. He coaches organizations, CEOs, and entrepreneurs. And I think it's really awesome what you're doing, Aaron. And we wish you nothing but success here from the United States of Small Business podcast.